Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
Hello and welcome to the Wise Conservative. I'm Connor Wise, and in this episode we're going to be going over something that's actually currently still going on as I am recording this episode, and that is the Iowa caucus. So currently, as I am recording, the Democratic Iowa caucus is still going on, with Hillary Clinton at 49.9% and Bernie Sanders at 49.6%. This is an extremely close race for the Democrats, but as I'm recording this, the Republicans are done. It has been projected that Cruz would win with 99% of delegates counted. So yes, Cruz has actually won the Republican caucus with a percentage of 28%, and Trump in second with 24%, and Rubio in third with 23%. So what does all of this actually mean, though? A lot of us, we hear these Iowa caucuses, and we hear that they're very important because, well, they're the first primaries, the first caucus. But honestly, they're not that important in the outcome of the election. Yes, there are people who drop out after the Iowa caucus. Just today we had Huckabee drop out and we had O'Malley drop out of the race. But if we look at the actual stats, we can see that the Iowa caucus doesn't actually decide who the nomination is most of the time, especially when we're looking at Republicans. If we look in 2012, Mitt Romney didn't actually win Iowa. So, I mean, that didn't work. If we look in 2008, well, John McCain didn't actually win Iowa. If we even look into 1980, when Ronald Reagan was caucusing in Iowa, he didn't win. Most of the time, Republicans who are nominated do not actually win Iowa. I'm not saying that this doesn't mean that Ted Cruz will not get the nomination. Honestly, at this point, I cannot tell if he will or not. Him and Trump are in a close race, so I don't know which one of them will get the nomination. I'm fairly sure that Rubio won't get the nomination, as he, in actual polls, national polls, doesn't do as well as the media would have you believe. But Iowa does not necessarily decide the facts. On the Democratic side, it's a little different. They have a little bit better statistics with whoever wins Iowa gets the nomination, but it's still not 100% of the time. In 1988, in 1992, Bill Clinton only received 3% of the vote in Iowa. Now, as you all know, he went on to win the presidency. So, of course, Iowa does not actually matter. Now, if you are an Iowan and you're hearing this, you're probably like, well, yeah, we do matter. We're the first people to vote on who we want to be the nomination. And, well, there's kind of both sides to this. Yes, they do have a big say in that the smaller candidates who get 1% or 2%, they're going to drop out. But in the other sense, with the bigger candidates, those like Donald Trump, those like Ted Cruz, those like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, they don't really have much of a say in the entire country whether those big candidates are going to be nominated or not. So Iowa is really only affecting those smaller candidates like Huckabee or O'Malley, who did in fact drop out today as I am recording this video. So it's kind of weird. And a lot of the times we don't actually notice that Iowa, while it does have to an extent some effect with these small candidates, it doesn't decide the nominee most of the time, especially with Republicans, as I'm guessing most of our viewers or downloaders are actually Republican, as this is a conservative podcast. So, what does this mean? Well, it means if your candidate didn't win, it doesn't mean it's the end of your candidate. It doesn't necessarily mean that, of course. You see, I am a Rand Paul supporter. I don't know if I've said that on the YouTube or on our podcast yet, but on my Instagram, which is linked on our YouTube channel, I have greatly voiced my opinion on preferring Rand Paul. I'm not going to get into why I believe he is the best candidate at this moment, but we can see he obviously did not win Iowa. Do I believe he has a great chance of getting the nomination? No. I am quite sad about that, but I'm not going to freak out that he didn't win Iowa. He still has strong support with all of these young voters. And while he didn't get 28% like Ted Cruz, he still did a lot better than most people would have expected him to do. He placed 5th. Now, the media would have you believe that Rand Paul has no support whatsoever. The media has been censoring him since day one, just like they did to his father when he was running for president. So, we can see that this Iowa caucus, even most of the first primaries, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, all of these first primaries, they don't necessarily decide for the rest of the primaries, as a lot of people seem to think they do. These bigger states like California, these bigger states like New York, these bigger states like Texas, they are going to have the biggest effect on the nominee. Because these bigger states, they have more population, therefore they have more delegates. So these primaries, yes, while the small candidates, the Huckabees, the Christies, they're going to take a huge hit, and most of the time they will drop out after these first 2 states. But it's the big states like California, Texas, New York that really decide who the nominee are. Because, as we all know, it's the popular vote really that decides the nominee most of the time. It's not like the general election where there's the electoral college. So these bigger states where there is more population, they're going to decide who the nominee is. And so that's why I'm hoping that Rand Paul does have a big comeback. Realistically, I am probably going to be putting my support behind Ted Cruz. I mean, I am a huge Rand Paul fan. I have a Rand Paul shirt that I actually wore today in support of him. I just don't believe it's his year. I hope in 2020 he runs again, and I think he will have a great chance of actually winning. But realistically, this election cycle, he's not going to get the nomination. So I'm going to be putting my support for the nomination behind Ted Cruz. I hope that he can actually win more states as it keeps going. I believe that, I'm not sure about this, so don't hold me to it, but I'm pretty sure Ted Cruz is polling higher than Trump in New Hampshire. So that's already another state that he's going to win. So what he has to do is just keep campaigning in the bigger states and get his message out there. I do believe that we can nominate someone other than Trump or Rubio. Quite honestly, both of them have horrible policies. Trump's tax plan is the worst out of every single candidate. His would create the most debt. Rubio, I had an entire video dedicated to why I don't think Rubio is even a true conservative. So, of course, I am going to be putting my support behind someone who is a real conservative. Ted Cruz is the closest to Rand Paul in this. So I hope in these next primaries he actually he continues this momentum. He continues this push to winning, because we need someone in the White House that actually follows conservative policies. We need someone in the White House that will fix our country. So while it's not the best choice with Ted Cruz, he is one of the better options. So when it comes to the primaries in your state, just remember that your vote does still matter. I know a lot of people are discouraged because, well, they're not the first states to have their primaries. And quite honestly, the field is limited by the time it gets to them. Yes, that is true, but your vote does still matter for who the nominee is going to be. So please show up and vote for whoever you believe should be the nominee, whether it be Trump, Clinton, whoever you believe it should be. Please go out and vote, because, well, that's how democracy should work. One person, one vote. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to say in this episode. Just kind of an update on the Iowa caucus, kind of explanation of why I believe they're not as important as a lot of people say they are. But we also do have to remember that these smaller candidates are going to be dropping out left and right after Iowa and New Hampshire. So thank you for listening to this episode on the primaries. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Download our other podcasts on iTunes or Spreaker. Give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. So yeah, keep listening to The Wise Conservative. I'm Connor Wise, and thanks for dropping in.